we're serious. Welcome to the Coming Apocalypse. I'm Pastor Paul Begley. The $1 trillion coin. I mean, it's getting comical. Let me just tell you what's happening here. The federal government could soon run out of money to pay its bills, raising questions about what the U.S. could do to avoid a historic default. Washington lawmakers have acted 25 times since 1993 to raise or modify the federal borrowing limit or debt ceiling. We have not had a balanced budget since 1993, and Newt Gingrich, who was the Speaker of the House, Bill Clinton was president. And now the narrowly divided Congress is still considering approaches this time around, creating speculation about another possible option, including Jerry Nadler, who says, hey, why not do this? Let's just mint a $1 trillion coin, put it in the Federal Reserve Bank, and go pay our bills, which is absolutely insane. I mean, just making stuff up. I tell you what, meanwhile, Bitcoin hitting close to 55,000 and the market back, I don't know, this close to even today. I don't know where it wound up. Let's find out. Let's get in the energy crisis that's going on, the skyrocketing the oil. Let's get a hold of an expert. Bob Kudla from TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Bob Kudla, how you doing, Bob?
I'm doing good, Paul. Hold on a second. Let me go get an expert real quick. This is, we're rapidly, reaching Bugs Bunny here status with what's going on. So let me talk about the coin first.
Okay.
I don't know if people realize that, but we already have a coin. It's called the Federal Reserve buying back the debt, holding it on its books, and all the interest paid goes back to the Treasury anyway. So we already are creating a coin. It's just some sort of gimmick. At some point, the Federal Reserve is going to be required to basically buy all the debt. What people don't realize, Paul, is that Federal Reserve buys our debt, and we have the Social Security buys our debt, and we have Fannie and Freddie Mae buys our debt, and we have state municipalities buy our debt. So most of the debt's already sitting onshore and in government hands. Medicare buys the debt. So, they all have their debt and all these IOUs. So we already have all that. The coin's just some sort of gimmick. What people don't realize is that when the government pays interest, they're just paying the Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
Okay, so and the Federal Reserve then turns around and hands it back to the Treasury. So let's move that whole gimmick thing off to the side. Let's talk about a potential default. We've gone in these situations before. Janet Yellen is always speaking and wringing her hands that the United States is going to go down a whirlpool of hell and all this other good stuff. We default. Well, that's not how it works. Number one is that when we can't borrow any more money, the federal government still gets revenue in the door. They simply are going to prioritize the payments. Okay, so the very first payment that has to get paid is the interest on the debt. So the notes get paid. Okay, and the Federal Reserve will still recycle new debts. So there's no default. It's just taking advantage of people's ignorance, number one. Number two is then all these statutory programs get paid second, i.e. Social Security, Medicare, on down the line. There's a list, okay? Defense Department gets paid. Okay, but what happens is all the other programs then have to defer. So, even including Defense Department, look, we won't buy any more of this, or we won't buy any more of that, that kind of stuff. So,
yeah, everything slows down.
On and on.
Yeah.
And so this thing could last another 6 to 8 weeks. The government's going to be just fine in terms of what they would call the draconian cliff, right? It's not going to happen. So let's move that off to the side. It's kabuki theater anyway. They're all pretending like the debt and stuff means anything. See, even my dog doesn't agree.
No, nobody agrees with it. So what you're saying is they take the debt and they just put it over here and they say, let's just ignore that and start over. We know the debt's there. Just pay interest on it, but we don't need to worry about it. The money's already in play. Let's just move on. Is that basically what's going on?
Yeah,
here?
Look, they're monetizing it. So what's really happening is that our standard of living is slowly getting eroded. And the best way to look at this, Paul, is to take the debt against our GDP and you divide it. And so really our standard of living is if they had a default and everything, would literally just be cut in half.
That's
okay.
Bad.
Yeah, so that's our and it's already happening to people behind the scenes. So, I'm sorry. Hold on 1 second, Paul.
Okay.
Let me put you on mute real quick. He hears me and he can't come play. 1 second, please.
Right. Okay. Who let the dogs out? Oof. Okay.
All right, I'm back.
All right. They let the dogs out. That's all right. That's okay. Maybe we should let the dogs run loose in Washington.
Yes, I thought that. My wife had to leave, and he doesn't like not being right next to me, but I can't have him for the interview. He's a 100-pound German Shepherd. He'd be right in the camera. But hey, but look. But it brings up a more important point. The reason why energy prices are going through the roof, food prices are going through the roof, is now the monetization has caught up. We literally shoved $4 to $5 trillion of what's called hot money into the economy on this excuse for the pandemic. Okay, and now this money is just sloshing around, and people are like getting worried. So what you do when you're worried? You buy things that are going to protect you for prices going higher. What's the first thing people buy? They buy real estate. Well, what happened to real estate last year? It went through the roof, right? What's the second thing they buy? They buy energy names, okay? And then when the Federal Reserve continues to monetize and try to suppress interest rates, that's when gold and silver will break out. The reason why gold and silver is not breaking out now is because the Federal Reserve keeps talking about, interest rates may go up. Well, at some point, people no, it's not. It's going to go to zero. We're going to go to zero on interest rates, and we're going to have full-on monetization until whatever this reset looks like, and that ties into Bitcoin because what I think is that this is Bob Kudla's tinfoil hat conspiracy theory that I think I'm right on, is that the United States is the one that invented Bitcoin in the first place. We have patents on these technologies back into the 90s on creating it. We don't know who Satoshi is. Satoshi owned most of the coins, right? United States, and I saw an article today, I don't know where it was in one of the major journals that basically said China screwed up by kicking out the Bitcoin digital asset. United States is very comfortable having it side by side with the dollar, and I believe because at some point they're just going to say, hey, you know what? We have to get off the dollar. This whole debt thing's a mess. We're flipping over to Bitcoin. We're Satoshi, right? Everybody has to now go to Bitcoin, turn your dollars into Bitcoin. We're going to reset the dollar, then we're going to roll off back into the dollar again. That's my view on this.
Do you think at that point, cash goes away? We go to digital wallet, okay? Bitcoin, the new currency, digital wallet, and to incentivize people, I kind of think, I'm going to throw this in there, they might even give you a little extra than what the dollar. In other words, for every dollar you give them, they're going to give you back $1.25, okay?
Yeah.
You see something like that happening?
Yeah. I mean, look at this is the classic. This is the classic. Everybody goes, we're going to Bitcoin because we're going to stick it to the man, right?
Right.
I'm not doing this thing, because it's anti-government, right? And they turn around and the United States government owns it, right. and then they get you on digital. Look, that's neither bad nor good. We know when it gets bad is when some of the kind of crazy stuff they're talking about with the vaccine passports about trying to control your life. Now, people can't see how the Antichrist could take over. I think we got a pretty good taste in the last 2 years on basically the precursor of the approach. But yeah, look, they're going to, and for people to realize we're already digital. Okay, how much of your stuff you pay in cash? The governments around the world know a great deal about you already. So unless you've constantly lived in a cave and bartered and paid cash for things. Okay, the government has a good sense of who you are, how much you make, how you live your life, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The thing that Bitcoin does for you, it's not anonymous, but it's pseudonymous, right? And the thing what people are scared about with the digital coin is that the government will know every one of your transactions personally, okay? And that's what people worry about now because the way this culture works, the way the Democrats are acting is that they want to punish people for not falling in line. And so, I mean, these people are really, really, I mean, they're pathological, and they can't handle psychologically people not agreeing with them or understanding how they view the world as it should be. And so they said, well, I'm tired of trying to persuade you. Now I'm going to try to control you. And you see it with the pandemic. You're hearing it now. Look what they dragged that lady up on Facebook. You know, she's a control plant, more likely. What does she ask for? More censorship, right? Yeah. So all this thing is trying to drive to that point.
And they're turning the FBI on the parents. You know, I mean, that is like, okay, if you don't do it our way, we'll just send the goons after you. Here come the FBI, the men in black. We'll take your kids, they'll throw them into CPS. You know, this is not how you win the hearts and minds of America.
Yeah, that's not going to happen, Paul. That was an ultimate foobar on the part of Merrick Garland. I mean, whoever needs on the political side of the Democrats, you need to walk over. You need to walk that back, dude, because suburban moms are the ones that put Biden in power, and you start telling these suburban moms that, you know what, you can't now say anything about how your child is raised.
That's all.
You're going to flip them. And look at DeSantis came right out and said, "There's no way we're going to let federal agencies get involved in state matters whatsoever. No. We'll protect and defend the citizens of Florida." And how many FBI agents are really going to go for that? It reminds me of the time when my pastor, his wife's from Romania and communism, and they knew it was over when they sent the troops out. Ceausescu sent the troops out to kill the demonstrators, and the police turned around, put their rifles down, hugged their fellow citizens, their family members, and turned and arrested Ceausescu. You're going to get to a point where these FBI agents, they live in our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not. You're going to say, what are you going to? You're going to take your neighbor's child away because they said we don't like the way the school's running the school? I don't think so. These guys don't all live in a dorm somewhere, away from who they live with. Right. So I was really happy to see that, actually, because these guys are so arrogant. They think whatever they do is going to not cause a reaction. They're just frustrated, Paul. They can't get any of their agenda through. And every time they propose something, Biden's approval rating goes down even further. And the problem is that, and in fairness to Biden, if he was in full control of his faculties and was more vigorous, he probably would get in front of some of this stuff. But he's not engaged. And so it depends on who's sitting in the chair is basically running. Like Merrick Garland, he doesn't fear Biden. Biden probably didn't even know that email went out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't even know. And matter of fact, John Kerry said that Biden doesn't even know about the French submarine deal with the Australians. Well, he said, like, what happened? Nobody told me. Well, either they told him and he can't remember, or they didn't tell him. And they're just Susan Rice and John Kerry and these guys are just running the show. Anthony Blinken, and maybe it's Obama from the back seat. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, but to your point, the American people, even on the left now, are saying, what are you doing? And, unfortunately, Biden's looking like Mussolini in some ways, not in a bolstering way, but in a clueless to what the populace are really feeling out here. It's crazy. So what does this mean for the market? How do people trade in an environment? But maybe you should talk energy first, because I think that's...
well, it all ties together. And I think we talked between this. I called the Taliban top, the Biden blunder. That's when we hit the highs of the market. And, and I think from there, I think people start losing confidence in I think the view people thought this administration could carry forward. Look, we've been hard long in energy names, oil, gas, natural gas, coal, and uranium. And we've just been knocking it out of the park. I mean, way better than we thought we'd do. It's unbelievable to me what's happening. China's out of coal. Great Britain's out of gasoline. Germany's out of natural gas. Netherlands out of natural gas. Okay, India and they're all out of uranium. The United States they're trying to sabotage our energy infrastructure, right? So you have all these things as a perfect storm. And today, you and I are talking on it, was it Tuesday? Is that today they finally got in there and basically Russia had to literally come to the rescue of Europe and say, hey, look, we're supplying all the natural gas those guys asked for. So it's a self-inflicted wound. Putin's like, hey, don't put this on me. This is how much they contracted for. I'm delivering, but I'm happy to do more. And that calmed the energy markets down a little bit. Yeah. India only has 3 days of coal on hand. And so this is a short reprieve, and then we're going to roll right back in again. We're going to have a really hard winter. It's going to be a cold winter. Farmer's Almanac, the Grand Solar Minimum, everything's telling us this. It's all lining up, the sunspot cycle, that we're going to...
Do you think if it's going to be a real cold winter, do you think there could be nations that literally will run out of coal and electric grids will go down in the middle of a brutal time?
Well, I think, it almost happened last week.
China did. China lost power in 3 major...
Yeah, look, China cut back on their factories.
Right.
So that's what, look, in the Netherlands, they shut down their greenhouses. So how all this stuff kind of ties together, Paul, and so so our view was, look, if it hurts when you drop it on your foot, you want to own it, okay, and that's how we're playing it, and we're doing extremely well. I shot over things what our customers are saying that we're doing. Encourage people to look at that. That's every day. I mean, today we actually anticipated the reversal in natural gas, and we told people to get into a stock to benefit from that. Well, that trades up about 7% in one day.
Wow.
And then we told people to get into the railroad stocks because if fuel comes down and they're trying to unwind the backlog at the ports, well, we got in CSX, that went up. We got into Mara, the Bitcoin miner, that went up. And on it goes. So every day we try to find 1 or 2 good stocks.
So you're able
as part of our algorithm.
So, folks, this is Bob Kudla with TradeGeniusAcademy.com. That's TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Now, you can call Bob at 1-800-949-1408. That's 1-800-949-1408 if you want to get in the program. And I'm going to say something. This is the time to get control of your own destiny. If you're sitting there saying, I don't know what to do, I don't know where to put the money. If you're saying interest is going to go to 0, you can't make any money in the savings account. Where do you put it? Money market certificates? Do you put it in Bitcoin? Do you get it in precious metals? Do you put it in the stock market? If so, if you want to learn how to day trade or be a trader, you need to find out the system. And you have that, don't you, Bob?
Yeah, and even if you're not a day trader and you want to make money, I have a lot of customers of mine that actually own their own businesses. And they come part of it because they're looking to see, hey, is there a longer trade that we should get involved in and be part of? And so we, the dog finally came in. My wife came home. I just chased him out. And so we'll even help you with some of the swing trades. Look, you talk about Bitcoin. Our Bitcoin guy, basically now, look, it's almost a fait accompli that we're going to go back and test the highs now. And once we break through 65, 67 area, now we can make that assault on 85, 90, and maybe even to 6 figures. Because I think a lot of people are anticipating this Evergrande bankruptcy to cause a lot of banking turmoil, and a lot of people now are positioning themselves. You need to have your foot outside the banking system on something. Yeah. The way we look at it is, hey, have some in Bitcoin, have some in altcoin, have some in gold and silver miners, or physical if you want, and then look at food and energy. That's the play, because central banks aren't going to give up on money printing because that's the mother milk for politicians. God forbid a politician has to make a hard choice, right? So they're just going to go ahead and just spend us into oblivion, and then blame oblivion for the problem. And so you just want to own things so you can stay ahead of that. And that's what we tell people. Our favorite energy name is uranium because it's secular. They can't. It's secular, not in a religious way. It's secular. I mean, it's a long-term approach, and because those power plants are built, they need to be full, and they don't care about the price of uranium. They're or whatever. It can double. They still have to buy it. So it's basically inelastic demand. They have to buy it.
The shortages of oil and natural gas, is it because of the Paris climate agreement and this green energy move? And in fact, the United States has just shut things off, and it's happening in Europe too. So is what's created this mess?
Yeah, it's self-inflicted wound, Paul. So look, their whole thing was they wanted to make people gradually uncomfortable with prices to force them into substitutions. But these people are idiots. They don't understand nonlinear events, right? And we just got a nonlinear event. Natural gas didn't go from $6 to $6.30. Oh, by the way, maybe I should get more insulation in my house, or maybe I should, put those solar panels on my home. We went from $6 in Europe to $25 in Europe. And now all of a sudden, and people have to pay that. So you can kiss Christmas goodbye in Europe. These bills that are coming in the next couple of weeks in Europe is going to take some time, maybe everybody's paycheck. Okay? I mean, their entire paycheck
just
in
to
England.
Stay warm. Just to stay warm.
Just stay warm. Just to pay the bill you already used.
Right.
And then now you have to think about, well, what does it mean by November, December when it's actually cold? And I'm going to be using natural gas to heat my home. Or I'm going to have electric heat, but the natural gas plant is going to jam me because they have to pay these high bills. Or we don't get any of it at all because we ran out, because the wind's not blowing, so we lost our temporary thing. So yeah, they totally messed this up, Paul. And of course now they're scrambling, they're trying to deflect, but people aren't stupid. They know what they've been told for the last 30 years. And and will be the delicious irony of it all. When we get really cold weather, they can't even blame global warming because it's just going to be cold.
It's cold. So now what? Whose fault is that? And will the green energy people ever come to Jesus and realize that this religion of trying to heal the earth by ridiculous means? I mean, oil is something that the earth naturally produces. It naturally produces oil and gas from from all of the greenage and foliage that's slowly, disintegrating into the oil. Look, this is a natural progression. God give it to us to use it for our benefit. Why shut this all off and try to hide in some kind of mud hut? And see, we got Putin saying it's going to be a cold, dark winter, and we got Biden saying it's going to be a dark winter. This doesn't sound good. The Almanac says it. So are we on the verge of a global reset here?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what that looks like. That's just a phrase being thrown around. But I like your metaphor, come to Jesus. So, but they're not. I mean, look, it's when Jesus comes back, it's going to be like the time of Noah, right? So, right. So do the math, right? And, look, they don't care about that stuff, Paul. There's an old saying is that people would rather be a king of a dunghill, all right, than be a ready participant in their community. Right. So they don't care. If I'm the boss, I don't care how crappy everything else is around me, as long as I have my man. Yeah. And I think that's what we're seeing here is that these people are it is their religion. So you can't convince them. And if they don't have the Holy Spirit in them, then they're not chosen.
Do you see a big red wave coming in 2022?
Yeah, it's already here. I think they're freaking out.
It's a tidal wave, isn't it?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's why the pandemic's going to go away. All this stuff's going to go away. I think they're desperately trying to fix this energy thing. This $3.5 trillion spending thing was to show people, look what I did for you. Big slush fund. Get out and vote for me. These guys are going to take it all away from you, but they can't get it approved. It's a mess. People don't like what they're spending it on. The whole 9 yards. And so, look, they only have to lose 12 seats.
Right. Well, that's easy. That's going to happen.
So you don't even need a wet red wave. You just need to have an extra high tide. Yeah. And then the Senate's back to Republicans and the Houses too.
And the Senate's going to flip also. Herschel Walker's going to win. Okay. Yeah. And there's some other seats that's going to go. So and so then Biden's just going to sit in the White House. He's going to be too tired and the Republicans will take control of the country, get this thing moving, and then they'll say, Joe, you got to sign this. And it's the way it's going to work. Let me ask you a question. As this is happening, what should your viewers, the viewers out here, and those that's going to come to your school, and Brock, you've been putting up that attaboy thing, so I appreciate that. Look at all those great comments that the people have been saying. Zuckerberg has fallen off a cliff, or maybe she's a plant. I don't know what's going on there. But let me ask you a question. Do you see, at this point now, what should people invest in? It looks like energy. Is there any other sectors?
Yeah, look, I mean, right now, the best place to put your money is going to be in energy. The best place in energy is going to be uranium. Okay, as food prices continue to rise, believe it or not, grocery stores are going to be a good place to put your money, and wholesalers, because they're still buying cheaper than they're selling. And as prices move up the chain, they profit from the inflation of that. So that's that. And so you have, excuse me, so you have that area, and then really everything else, tech's in trouble. I think you may see some automation stuff now because it's not that people aren't going back to work. It's just that there's not enough people going to be willing to be in the workforce. It sounds like a non-answer answer, but there's a lot of people my age and older that just said, you know what, I could cash out of my house. I'll get some security in a couple of years. I'm tired of the race and hopping off. And what I've been told by some of my clients that are retiring, they're saying they're replacing it with 2 or 3 people underneath because the experience level is going. Exactly. So I think we're going to have a shortage of workers, and I think there'll be some automation opportunities coming from that. And so that's where I'm focusing on. Look, they're not going to let this thing go into a deflationary collapse because they can simply just keep printing. Okay. So you have to worry about, how can I outrun the printer? and that's where you have to be. You have to be ahead of the printer. Made in the Great Depression is that they basically let loans be called and stuff like that. And so you have this situation where we're just get used to it. We're going to look back to the 70s, Paul. We talked about this before. If people want to know what it looks like, just go ahead and Google the 70s. Google from 1966 to 1979, 1980, and that's what we're going to look like. The stock market's going to get violently volatile. Yeah. Energy costs are going to go up. Gold and silver will start to rise.
Interest rates.
The one-term president. We emaciated ourselves with our military. On it goes. But and then that's basically when we let China. Remember when Nixon went to China? Well, yep. that started the China rise, and I think this is going to end the China rise.
Wow.
China's population is going to fall by.
They're in trouble, aren't they? They're economically in trouble. Yeah.
They're in trouble. In many ways, their population is going to fall by 1/3 in the next 15 years just through simple demographics. People aren't having children, and their economic model was based on a Ponzi, okay? And ours is too. Ours is the reserve currency.
Yeah.
So the Chinese are not. So they have to live like a mortal, where the United States is living like a deity. Okay, so they're in trouble, and they're lashing out, but they're surrounded. So China's going to have a problem here too. So it's going to be really, really interesting. We'll see more things onshoring. That's going to raise labor. Look at the cereal manufacturer. I think Kellogg is striking now. Yeah. So you're going to start seeing wage inflation come up, and so people just look at the 70s. Trade like the 70s, and you're going to be in great shape. Okay, real estate went through the roof in the 70s.
Right.
As well. So
it's going to again. 1-800-949-1408. That's 1-800-949-1408. TradeGeniusAcademy.com. Guys, you got to get in control of your own destiny. How do you do it? You need some training. It's not difficult, and you got great teachers and great chat room, the ability to bounce stuff off other people, to get in the euphoric energy of people actually doing well, and we can't sit around and just wait on the government to feed you. Seriously, it's not going to happen, guys. It's not going to. Let me ask you a question. This governor in New York, ask yourself this question. So you're going to fire the nurses. The healthcare heroes are now being thrown under the bus. Now you're going to throw the firemen on a bus, the guys that went storming into the tunnel, from the tunnel to the towers. You're kicking the military in the head and throwing the guy in the brig, so you let him out today because you know that looked really bad. I mean, you're doing everything. You're leaving people behind in Afghanistan. How much longer? You send people into nursing homes and then they all die from the sickness. How much more is this the stupidity, or is this something worse than that at play here? And that's where I turn to the Bible and say, it's all happening. Bob, final question here. So if people come to Trade Genius Academy, do you have any deals for them right now? What's going on?
Yeah, we do. And so they take advantage of it by Saturday, midnight. And 65% off. We have 7 bundles put together like we always do for you guys, Paul. And so we trade stocks, we trade cryptos, we trade the futures markets. We'll teach you. We have training courses as well. In addition to the chat rooms, and we talked about, and the trades I give out or Phil gives out, is that we also we give you access to our algorithm. So it's not like I'm sitting there behind the curtain like Oz, right? We actually show you how it works,
right?
And we let you in on the magic trick, and you can actually see it. I mean, they literally says buy or sell, where it goes green and red. I mean, how much easier can we make it?
Do you actually put people behind the wheel and let them drive?
Yeah, and we're like the driver ed thing. We have our own brake and steering wheel on our side too. But actually, we don't take your money. We don't trade for you. We give you signals. We teach you. We give you access to the system. You take the trades you want to take. We'll help you manage them. We'll give you our suggestions on targets and stops. But ultimately, you're in control. You're responsible. And look, we don't want to enable you. We don't want to be codependent. We want to get you started. Well, I always give trades out. That's what I like to do. And also is my accountability. So, I can get on this show here and tell you all day long how great I am. But I have every trade that I ever put out on Telegram is recorded. So people can just see my trades.
You can back it up. Yeah, you can back up.
So people know what we do. And then you can see for yourself, well, how did Bob do that? Well, just go back and look at the software. Oh, I see where he bought that. I see where he sold that. And then you get confidence. And then next thing you know, you're calling out your own trades and you're doing your own thing and you're helping each other in the rooms and stuff like that. So it's a great system, Paul. We're not Lambo guys. We're lunch pail. We're going to help you make money every day in the market. And what we're definitely going to do is give you life skills where you can become independent over time if that's your desire.
Deep State Uncovered on DVD. We've just released it. It's incredible. We take a look at the Deep State, the Illuminati, the New World Order, the secret societies, the biblical beast kingdom. We went and found people from the inside, like the General Boykin and others, as well as some great biblical insight. This is incredible. 9 DVDs. Get them now at my website.